Hey you. Yes, I mean you, dear listener. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this Warui Deshou podcast. We're so happy to have the pleasure of your company today. If you've listened to us before and like our show, you might be wondering how you could support us, since we won't take your money. This podcast will continue to be free, but if you'd like to show your appreciation, please consider leaving us a rating and review on iTunes, as those help our discoverability. If you don't use iTunes, that's fine too. You can follow us and like and share our content on SoundCloud, YouTube, and Twitter. Additionally, we love getting your feedback, positive or negative. Tweet us at Warui Deshou or email us at waruideshou@gmail.com. Whether or not it gets read on the show, I can assure you, we all read every tweet and email you send us. And once again, dear listener, we thank you so much. Now please, enjoy the show.
Warui Deshou.
So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me.
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and MBs. It is Warui Deshou, Stream of Thought. We're back after a bit of a break, in which the subtle doctor, by the way, in case you didn't know, obtained some much-needed R&R. I'm back in the Franxx saddle here to diagnose this wonderful, glorious train wreck of a robot anime. And with me, as always, cackling in the background, is a winner, a bronze medalist, a life champion, and expert level hacker, Shadon. Welcome, Shadon.
Hello, Doc. Just need to say right at the fore, folks, you don't need to be a doctor to diagnose what's wrong with this show.
I cannot disagree with you. Boy, this episode, man.
I know. I mean, I'm totally down for some Darling In The Franxxposition, because that's what this episode mostly is.
It sure was.
And it was bad. Pretty bad, also.
In a word, woof.
Woof. Just as a quick note at the fore, by the way, folks, I am currently wired on an energy drink, so if I'm more hyperactive and loud and shouty than normal, that's partly the episode's fault, and that's partly my own. So, just wanted to throw that in case you're thinking, wow, has Shaden been, doing a line of cocaine a mile long today? And like, no, just a monster energy drink, that's it.
You've had a monster, and now let's try to tackle this monster.
Indeed.
Heyo. Episode 19. The shittiest android in DBZ. Android 19. Fitting. It's called Inhumanity, which is what I feel the show is exacting upon me.
Man's inhumanity to man.
Yes. The Japanese title for this one, it's funny. I recently watched a video that talked about the English word for washing machine is, I think it contains 15 letters, and in Japanese it's a mere 3. This was talking about translating RPGs, and here the episode title in English is Inhumanity, and how to say this in Japanese is Hito Narazaru Monotachi. So I found that amusing. It's much longer. So let us discuss the episode director and writer for this week's. Oh, it's not this week's. We're behind. And I'm rusty. So it may take me a minute to settle back in to potting. Please bear with me. Takahiro Harada.
So he did both.
No, he's the director for 19. Takahiro Harada, and Masahiko Otsuka is the writer. Now Harada, he's been episode director before for shows like Black Butler, Blue Exorcist, the second season of Birdie the Mighty Decode, Occultic 9, more recently. So he's, a fairly experienced episode director. I don't see that he's been... he's been the chief director for, you guessed it, an Idolmaster spinoff, I guess. So I'm totally unfamiliar. So this is the Idolmaster Side M, which has its fans, its ardent fans, of course. So he's the director for that. And Masahiro Otsuka, you might remember, was the writer for Franxx Episode 3, way back in the balmy days of Episode 3 when we thought, hey, this show has potential. It could really go somewhere.
Oh, man. I mean, watching this show has made me feel like I've, gone through a trench, like, I've been caught in a foxhole. I have aged immensely, like, any naivete I had is now gone. Just,
So it accelerated the aging process upon you?
Seriously, like, I'm going to end up looking as old and as withered as Dr. Franxx himself by the end of this.
Like, okay, so it's so weird that Otsuka is associated with this show. I mean, I guess, writers' resumes, right, are probably pretty checkered most of the time. You have to put food on the table. So you have to write for projects that don't exactly, as a whole, reflect your talent. But, oh my god, this guy, like, directed 3 episodes of Furikuri, which is an incredible, like, perhaps masterpiece level anime. Directed very important episodes of Kill la Kill, which I think I covered last time we talked about him. Directed episodes 13 and 24, so like the finale of Kill la Kill. Wrote the Little Witch Academia movie and several episodes of the TV show, which I love. Was the assistant director. I did not cover this the last time. Assistant director for 2 Studio Ghibli movies.
Wow.
Poco and Whisper of the Heart.
Damn.
So, I mean, he did a bunch of assistant director work and episode directing work on Evangelion. So, I mean, the man has credentials, and now he's written 2 episodes of this bullshit. So, I don't know. I just throw my hands up, right? What are you going to do?
Direction, writing. I mean, God. All right. When we get into it, I'm going to actually need to discuss something about exposition, because here's the thing, right? I'm going to just throw out a very harsh truth to all would-be writers, whether you're writing for comics, whether you're writing for video games, television, anime, novels. Doesn't matter. This is something for everyone. This is something I've realized myself. When you're planning a world, when you're, developing a world for your characters to inhabit, you're probably very excited. You're probably thinking to yourself, I'm going to get every detail down to the smallest touch. I'm going to describe the textures of the cloths in the, the drapery shops and all that in immense detail. If you're planning a city, you'll know where every cafe is, where every subway is. You get my point. You will think of it in absolute massive detail, and you will be really, really excited to do it. The audience will not give 2 shits about that. They will care about your world building if you make them care about the characters. And on top of that, they will not care about your world building if you don't deliver it in a way that actually, works, or at least is engaging. Exposition, I'm very sorry to say, is crap. It is, by its very nature, I believe, a necessary evil. It is the death and taxes of writing. No one wants to do it. If you want to do exposition, you are deluding yourself, because it's honestly just rough trying to even get it done. I mean, one of the most annoying things for me in any medium is whenever I hear the phrase, as you know. Like, anytime those words get uttered, it just permanently marks a work for me. Because there's no way you should ever, also, I mean, let me just throw it this way. It's a dark. Well, as you know, David Hayter was the voice of Solid Snake. So, like, what? Why would I ever say that to him? I would never, ever say something like that. So, when it comes to exposition, generally speaking, this is why you need things like audience proxies. You need a character who's not in the know, who the other character who is in the know can explain things to. And then that's organic. they get explained. The audience in turn picks that up.
By the way, Kiefer Sutherland is the voice of Solid Snake. Thank you very much.
But.
As you know, video game player Shadon.
But as of maybe just under 30 minutes ago, the E3 Nintendo press conference ended with a new Super Smash Bros. Being announced, in which David Hayter is reprising the voice of Snake for the character. So,
very, very good.
You activated my trap card. Okay.
Excellent.
So, what does this whole exposition thing have to do with anything? Well, the vast majority of episode 19 of Franxx is exposition by Dr. Franxx. It is a flashback of the majority of his adult life. And there is a problem with it. Well, there are many problems with it, but the problems that I'm referring to here is one of its construction.
I mean, and it's something that, like, you feel like they could have sprinkled in at different points rather than having to shove it all down our throat in this for an entire episode, bar like a couple of shortcuts that they did of the present.
I agree wholeheartedly with you on that, Doc. But here's the thing as well. The context for Franxx having this particular flashback, or this series of flashbacks, is because Ape, in a conversation calling him over what is future Skype, basically telling bitch please when he complains about, Mitsu and Kokoro's memories being erased. By the way, I want to say right now, Apes explain to Franxx that they only wiped Mitsu and Kokoro's memories because, otherwise the rest of the squad would become disloyal, which seems to have the exact opposite effects in reality because the squad is very angry about them having done that. So my question to Ape is, why not wipe all their memories? Every single one of them. Completely and utterly format to the bone.
Ladies and gentlemen, here are the smartest people on planet Earth who managed to, take over the entire world.
I know.
Their decision-making prowess and intelligence is on display right here in this episode.
Yeah. So Franxx now goes through this entire flashback sequence, or series of sequences throughout the episode, basically because he's pissed off at how Ape talks to him. Is he delivering this exposition to anyone in particular? No. He is essentially daydreaming. And we're the only people, audience or otherwise characters in the actual show, privy to this. And the thing that boggles my brain the most is there's such an easy solution to this. I am absolutely astounded to even consider it, which is, why isn't Franxx telling this information to Hero, or 02, or Ichigo, or anyone else? Because they all don't know any of this stuff. They are completely oblivious to the history of the world before they were born, in fact, while they've been living. So, the easiest thing in the world would have been just simply for Franxx to sit Hero and 02 down somewhere, and then go through it and say, look, I've done some stupid shit in my time. I've done some stupid shit to you two in particular. Let me at least try and explain. I was going
to say, well, they probably don't want to hear anything from him. I mean, Hiro rightly said, I'll never forgive you for what you've done.
In the most piss-weak mewling cat way ever. Oh my god. I'll never forgive you, Franxx. Fuck off, Hero.
What did you want him to do? Start to kick his ass or something?
What was Franxx going to do? I mean, okay, to be fair, he is, got a metal robot hand and all that, but I expected something more than just, I'll never forgive you, delivered in a plain, voice. Jesus Christ. Anyway, we'll get to that later. So, my point of all this is, there are so many different ways that this exposition could have been delivered, rather than it being in this weird, I'm pissy vacuum, that it happens in. So, regardless of what would have actually been said, it's already out the starting gate a failure. And this is not even experimental, nouveau, highbrow writing techniques here. This is the absolute basics.
Nouveau highbrow writing techniques.
Yeah.
We should start a writing school called the Nouveau Highbrow Writing Techniques School of Writing Techniques.
Honestly, I literally feel like doing a Gordon Ramsay and just getting two, binders full of paper and pointing them round the writer's head and going, "You're a fucking idiot sandwich, mate. You are an idiot script." Because this is amateur hour shit. This is what I would expect from, let's say, someone in high school, whatever side of the pond you're from.
Mm-hmm.
This is just And then we've not even actually got into what Franxx actually says and reveals.
Oh my god.
Oh
Well,
my Jesus Christ.
As you know, Shadon, member of this podcast, we have all these problems with the structure and execution of the writing and the plot holes and contradictions therein. But as I was telling you before, probably my biggest problem with the episode is, apart from that, it's just that it sets out to try to humanize this guy, Werner Frank. And he doesn't really deserve to be, like, even after, I'm just like, I don't care. I feel no sympathy for this character, and it's partly because the things that he did were so heinous and he doesn't appear remorseful, and partly because, like, they don't do a great job with the character. He was honestly a little bit more interesting as an enigma.
Yeah.
Than as, like, a very rote mad scientist aesthete / atheist.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm an atheist. Now I will cook all these unborn fetuses.
Oh my... You're absolutely right, though, Doc. I mean, the exposition, like, the points that he gets across, like, with the world building and such, like, giving us information about the history before, you know, the apocalypse that's happened, like, a lot of it is actually, as you rightly say, focused around on him interacting, like, you know, being humanized, like, you know, I don't want to, like, you know, become sterile, like, blah, 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 blah.
I mean, all Milsa, it's just, you know, is it Katrina or Karina?
Karina.
All that she sort of exists to do in the show is to make Frank seem more human. And that's that's sort of it.
Yeah.
And it just it didn't work for me, man.
No.
At all.
No. Like, we're way past the point of being able to care about this character. I mean, I've made this joke off cast. I'm throwing out there now. He is the Hojo of this series. And expecting anything more than a Hojo level of sympathy from me is too much to ask. I don't think they should have wasted their time.
Okay, who is this Hojo that you're speaking of? I, Werner Frank, am, you know, wholly original character, mad scientist. I'm an atheist as well, you know. Don't you know? You know, I now will continue to do my experiments. Have you seen the Queen? Have you seen the Queen? She's beautiful. She is so beautiful. The Queen.
Thank you, Dr. Franxx, for phoning in to this particular podcast.
Clink, clink, clink. I'm pinching my metal claw. Clink, clink. Do you hear it in the microphone? It's very good. Made it myself. I will tell you all about it, if you will permit me.
No.
No, not now, sir. Please.
No.
Settle down. Settle down, Frank.
Piss off, Dr. Franxx. No one likes you. Oh, God. Well, let's get to it in order then, I suppose. Let's start from the beginning, because the beginning is a good place to start. In the year of 2025.
Wait a minute. Is that what year we are?
That's what year the flashbacks begin in.
Okay. That's right. Okay, so, well, like you said, though, pre-OP is, like, Ape telling him off, right?
Yep.
Which we covered that. He says, they want to deal with me in this forceful way. But I was forceful too. Has a wistful look in his one human eye. Cut to OP, and then the flashback begins, as you say, in 2025. A mere 7 years from now.
I know, making the classic 90s action movie mistake of putting, you know, the dates a bit too close. I mean, I'd have settled for 20XX here, and there's actually a legitimate complaint with regards to the timeline of this. But we'll get to that later once we find out, you know, where the flashbacks end as time progresses. Because, spoiler alert, the future of Franxx is not so far away as it happens.
Yeah,
and that's problematic.
Yeah, the man has aged quickly. Yeah. So, God, this whole exposition thing. Can I just say, by the way, that I myself am not necessarily opposed to it in principle, only because I've seen it done in a way that I really enjoyed it a couple of times. So I feel like it's possible to do it well. It's just extremely difficult
Yeah.
to do it in a way that's engaging. The one example that I keep thinking of, and I know a lot of people do disagree with me about this, but I actually thought the first episode of Fate Zero handled exposition really well.
Oh, with the exposition dance.
Yeah, the duel. I mean, I was like totally like riveted by that. I thought that was a really cool and interesting way to do it. And at the time I watched it, like I wasn't a huge fan of Fate or anything. Like I didn't really know all that much about the universe. I hadn't played the visual novels. I had seen, in fact, I had seen the original anime. So I was predisposed to not like Fate before I watched Fate Zero.
Yeah.
And yet, that exposition I thought was good.
Yeah, well, here's the thing from my perspective, right? It's been a while since I've seen Fate Zero, but there are two distinct things that I do remember about how it did that exposition. First off, it was the very, very first episode. Now, I'm not saying that Darling in the Franxx, the show, should have delivered all of the stuff that we learn in this episode right at the very beginning. But there is certainly a sense of pacing that should be afforded with these reveals. And that doesn't happen. Like, this is 5 episodes before the end. So what needs to be revealed here needs to dramatically alter our understanding of the world in the show. That does not happen.
No.
Nope, it does not.
No.
It does not answer the vast majority of the questions that we've had. As a matter of fact, it actually raises more questions and also flat out contradicts itself or doesn't make sense. Secondly, the exposition that's being delivered in Fate Zero is to, I believe, what was the name of the priest dude again? I
can't remember.
I feel so bad because I should know this.
It's Kirei Kotomine, isn't it?
Kotomine, yes, that's right. Kotomine, right? Here's the thing. Kotomine is having stuff explained to him. This is why I said before about having an audience proxy, because he knows nothing about the Holy Grail War or the rules of it. So, okay, yes, that first episode of Fate Zero was 40 minutes long. There was a lot of stuff to be dumped there. But at least it was being explained to someone who, in-universe, didn't know the game that they were about to play. Mm-hmm. Who is Franxx explaining his, flashback to?
His own metal palm.
Beats the fuck out of me? I ain't got a clue. So, even whatever complaints you might have about Fate Zero's first episode being, overly long and overly, dumping it early, at least it, A, did it early. I mean, perhaps maybe too early, you could argue, but at least it got it out of the way early. And B, it did it to, organically to a character who didn't know anything, as opposed to Franxx just monologuing. I mean, I'm literally surprised he wasn't holding a Klaxoscore skull in his hands or something like that while doing this. I'm genuinely shocked that that's not the case.
Yeah, I barely knew ye,
Alas, poor Karina.
So we find out about Ape briefly, but we find out that they're mysterious, which we already knew. They're a mysterious organization who discovered magma energy.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, basically took over the world, gained influence in politics and economics, changed the globe. And this magma energy somehow, when injected into people, makes them immortal, which I think was part of what Franxx figured out, right? He wanted, these people, Ape, hire Werner Franxx to do this magma energy research in their quest to discover human immortality.
That's right.
And all this happens do you call it pre-apocalypse? I mean, they don't really speak of an apocalypse. The only sort of apocalyptic event is they say the Klaxosaurs appeared. But they don't talk about the destruction of the world. They do talk about, the plantations, but that was before the Klaxosaurs showed up.
Well, the desertification as well that happens as a result of these. That I would argue is an apocalypse thing. I mean, that's what happens in Mad Max after all.
So I misread that. I misunderstood what they were talking about. So the desertification was just as they used more magma energy, the planet became depleted.
That is correct.
Okay.
Franxx says that. He says that, we figured out that was the case. There was a link to it, but did anyone do anything about it? No. And I'm like, Captain Planet, he's a hero, gonna take...
Pollution down to 0.
I mean, I'm sorry, that's the level of which this examination is going to. That's barely what it meets. I get the analogy here, I really do. Oil. That's what it is. Or Mako energy. And
more Final Fantasy VII cribbing.
yeah, I know. I mean, I've been making those jokes all this time, but we are literally that close to it being plagiarism. Seriously, I mean
we might find out in a later episode that magma energy actually is just souls, and that's why it makes you immortal, because you're injecting all these past lives into your body.
It really wouldn't surprise me.
And then they really will be full on plagiarizing the life stream from FF7.
Just I don't even.
What if, and then one of the Robo Bishops will stand up and go, "Kya ha ha ha," and the other will stand up and go, "Kya ha ha ha," and at that point,
Well, just to say something, folks, at this point, because we are, of course, slightly behind, I have actually already seen episode 20. Doc has not. And I'm not
I haven't.
And I'm not going to spoil anything for Doc other than to just make this warning. Be careful what you wish for.
Oh my Jesus Christ. All right. Let's push on. I can't even dwell on that to think about it.
No, don't. Please don't.
Enter lady, fan, scientist, coworker, researcher, Karina Milsa, who has an eye for young Werner, and she's read all of his stuff. And when he finds out who she is, he's taken aback because he knows her stuff, and they get to work together to do what? I mean, who fucking knows what kind of experiments they did, right? I mean, you can only imagine.
Well, about that actually, as it happens. So yes, as we said before, like magma energy can apparently make you immortal. Now, I mentioned before that this flashback when Franxx is, hired by apes to do these experiments was dated 2025. We get that on the middle of the screen. There's no doubt in that. Cut to 2030, a mere 5 years later, and it turns out that Franxx and Karina and some other unnamed third dude who I don't know and don't care about have declared that their experiments are successful and they have stopped the aging process. Now, forgive me for being, skeptical of this and wanting this particular thing to be peer-reviewed, but 5 years is not a particularly great time to declare, someone as being immortal. I think that's jumping the gun a touch, because the person they're doing this on looks like a regular bloke. Here's the thing about being immortal, right? There's a number of ways in which that works. Do they stop aging? Do they continue to age? But they just never ever, die once they reach, 80 and, they're all wrinkled? Or do they stop aging there and then? What happens if you do it to kids? Franxx, mate, your PhD ain't worth shit. Because you are jumping to conclusions a touch there. I mean, did you keep this man in this tube for 5 years? While you pumped him full of magma energy to see if he did age or not? How did you determine that?
They have an aging pill that they take that ages you rapidly.
It's called Darling in the Franxx, the anime.
It's blocked. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't touch on before he was hired, they do the stupid, what is the university or whatever that he's working for, the chancellor or head of his department. You don't really know who this is. His boss is basically like, well, I've decided to send you to Ape, mainly because you do some awful experiments, namely cloning ones that are unethical. And Franxx's response to charges of lack of morals, lack of ethics in scientific practice is, I'm an atheist, And that's not really an answer to that, because whether or not you believe in a god or any kind of higher power, there's not a logical connection between that and whether or not you believe in morality.
Exactly.
Relative or objective. Some people argue that there is. I don't agree. But the show is not being, super subtle about this sort of thing. And the show is, I think, where you rightly take issue. And you have this character like Franxx who is doing these awful things and doesn't feel any remorse and only follows the science where it leads to get the conclusions, to see sort of the apex of humanity for a while. That's his motive. And he can do this because he's not bound by the shackles of any god or religious system. So are the words from his own mouth. And it's very, God, it's so like just amateurish and lacking in any kind of understanding or nuance or anything good. Just lacking in anything good.
Yeah, I'm going to add as well that I'm fairly confident that, cloning, human cloning in particular, to the point where Franxx is doing, 'cause he's flat out already, like, the very first shot we see of the flashback is of him, of, like, tubes of, like, fetuses and mass and, and all that. Like, I am fairly confident that the, cloning human tissue and cloning humans in full or in utero or whatever is banned under at least one of the UN conventions. Mm-hmm. I think that would seems to me like what it would be the case of, because I know that you can do things like clones, grow stem cells and whatnot, but we've not even got to the point now in real life like cloning like human organs and whatnot. But here's the thing, right? Religion, or the absence thereof, regardless of, the morality thing, like, I am actually legitimately surprised the Chancellor at no point has just simply not thrown Franxx out. Or had him arrested. Like, forget the whole morality thing. Where's the legal element?
Yeah.
Why is no one just simply just kicked him out? I mean, Christ, if Peter Venkman can be thrown out for doing Ghostbuster research, then I don't see any reason they can't get rid of, Dr. Frankie or whatever his fucking name is. Actually, come to think of it, why does his name change to Franxx? Pass, move on.
Well, so
no,
Yeah,
I know, because
you know why.
double X.
The chromosomes.
That's so dumb. Oh my god.
Yeah, they call him that after the project, and they named the project after him. So, fucking hell. So, the reason I wanted to circle back to that is because you have this scene when they've discovered, so they say, immortality, the immortality serum. Franxx believes that the main side effect will be that you will lose your ability as a human to reproduce.
Mm-hmm. You'll become sterile.
And he's kind of, he will continue to pursue this ultimately because he wants to see where the end of human evolution is. He wants to see how far humanity can get. But he's bummed out because this loss of mortality and the loss of reproductive ability mars the beauty of humanity. And so, again, this is like walking right through that door of super trite mad scientist character.
You've just made me realize something. If he said, like, wants to see what the end process of evolution is. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't want to then take the immortality, treatment that would allow him to see that through.
Yeah.
What?
Again, and this is, I think, another pretty standard characteristic of the unhinged scientist. They want to be a detached observer and see where things go from their vantage point, the vantage point of the scientist that's studying, that's injecting, that is test tubing and pushing things along, but not test subject themselves. And yeah, that's Werner Franxx. He's aesthete, atheist, scientist. Again, super duper hackneyed, in my opinion, as a character type. Not really feeling him as a character at this point. And again, in this scene, he reiterates for us that he's an atheist because Milsa says, well, once we evolve enough and we cease to be mortal, will we be humans or will we be gods at the end of that evolutionary path? And he simply responds with, I'm an atheist, you know. And I rolled my eyes so very hard.
Yeah.
And at that point, in the middle of an exposition-heavy explainer flashback, we get a fucking info dump. So this is like on the weather map, this is the red eye of the storm. This is the nexus of info dumpiness. An info dump in the middle of an info dump. It's unbelievable.
You're not wrong.
And he just starts... I don't even have any notes on it. I mean, it's just him saying, so the world changed after we became immortal, and the planet started becoming a desert, and the plantations, and governments, and ape.
Immortality is only available for the rich as well, apparently.
Yeah, that lasted about 2 lines in the script.
Oh, yeah, because contradicts himself later on. Fantastic.
I mean, we don't get to see any picture of the worlds where the wealthy monopolize immortality. Yeah. It just, skip ahead in the timeline, and it's now a feature of the species.
The most we get is a visual comparison of skyscrapers versus what looks like Brazilian favelas, but That's it. We're not actually seeing any people here, or what that means.
What good does it even do? At some point, your show functions as a TV show and not a history lesson. If there's a detail of the world's history in this very limited amount of space you have that lasts a year or 2 or 5, and it just isn't important, why even bring it up? It serves no purpose. It was whatever. I mean, you would just assume that will be this case and state of things anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But God, whatever. And at this point in the show, we have our first switch back to the present. And I think it's the first of 2.
There are a couple of different scattered scenes of the kids in the present as they're dealing with the aftermath of, not Futoshi. Although I wish he had his memory wiped. Then again, does he have much brain matter in there anyway to wipe in the first place? I don't know.
Oh, Futoshi. Yeah, there's 2 of these in the middle of the flashback. Of course, there's some present stuff after the flashback is over, but these felt really disjointed. I would have actually appreciated this technique if they switched back and forth between past and present a couple more times and kind of made it the motif of the episode. But it just felt really weird. It felt like, oh God, the flashback's only going to be 18 minutes long.
Well,
we gotta have a couple more scenes.
Absolutely. But here's the thing, right, okay? I'm going to actually skip ahead a little bit here and just reveal that, yes, Karina does have the hots for Dr. Franxx. And they actually have a scene later after this first flashback that is about them suggesting that they get married. Now, we'll come to that scene in a bit. But here's the thing, right? If you want to do these transitions well, what you could potentially have done, in my opinion, is to tie that of Karina and Franxx being partners in one quote with the discussion that happens between Mitsuru and Kokoro here, and also Futoshi, of them not being partners, have a link, a thematic bridge between that and that. That could have worked if they had rearranged the scenes. Do they? No. It's just a hard cut back to where back to the present day.
Because you're supposed to be smart enough to figure that out for yourself. Don't make me put it on a platter for you just because you can't understand. Don't fault the show.
Ugh. Anyway, let's talk about Mitsuru, Kokoro, and blah.
I mean, there's not a lot to say.
No, there is. I have something. I do have something I want to say on this.
I just didn't have a lot of strong This scene is just Futoshi saying, "Absolutely not, out of the question. I won't be your partner. I'm out. Partner with your boyfriend that you don't remember. Oh, I'm sorry, your husband. See that ring that's still on your finger inexplicably? That means you're married."
Yeah. So. Okay, Doc is right. There's not much to this scene, really. It's just Mitsuru and Kokoro talking I don't remember any of this. I'd never do that, blah, 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 whatever. The direction in this scene is absolutely shocking. cuts and the framing of it. Like, they have a shot of Kokoro, but it's like watching it on a smartphone, but it's somehow on your telly. It's like it's in 360p. What the fuck were they doing with this? Like, I've praised Franxx's direction before, but they also have like a shot of like Kokoro looking up at Mitsuru, but like they're on opposite sides. Is that meant to see like they're not seeing eye to eye? What is going on? Like, this is going too far. This for a scene which tells us very little other than yes, they don't remember each other or their previous experiences. The direction is all over the shop. I was actually laughing when that insert shot of Kokoro's tiny face in the middle of the screen, surrounded completely by black background, came in. It looked like a YouTube thumbnail. It was embarrassing. I don't necessarily not appreciate, trying to, be experimental, but sometimes simplicity is art itself. So, by God, that was just bizarre.
Yeah, they replicated Franxx's experimental failures in the lab with the cinematography.
I know. And then it's 2036.
Woohoo! And like you said before, they have their date, Milsa and Franxx, because Franxx is a human too. Feel for him.
Oh no, that ain't happening. But just to backtrack, when we cut back to 2036, Franxx reveals to us, the audience, that humanity's immortality rate has exceeded 70%, with the remainder to follow soon. I have questions.
Yeah.
1. Whatever happened to the poor and the poor and rich divide here? It's been 9 years. No, it's been less than that, because
Truly substantial change.
yeah, it's been 6 years since they perfected the immortality treatment. So A, do they even know it works? B, are you telling me that literally every single person below a certain breadline level is now dead? And because
Right.
the line here suggests everyone's going to get it. So, what? Is this, the single payer healthcare system that conservatives fear or some shit? What the fuck is going on? Like,
It'd be nice to know. I mean, you could theorize, but
this scene is mere minutes after each other. If this was honest, if I've seen the script books they use for this show, this is literally on the next page as far as I'm concerned.
possibly the same page.
Possibly same page. Like, okay, I've made concessions before about, plot points being inconsistent between episodes, but in the very same episode, what is going on? This is embarrassing. This is pathetic.
What happened to Otsuka? What happened?
I don't even know. But
My
yes,
God.
the date.
So, yeah, she reveals she has the hots for him in a sort of amusing, roundabout way. And he said, "You have terrible taste." And I agree. You do, poor Milsa. Plot device that you are.
I'm glad to see that Franxx says something with some accuracy at some point in this entire flashback.
Yes, one.
The one correct thing.
And of course, by the way, they both reveal on this day that they, as you point out about Franxx, the same is true for her. They don't want to be immortal because he, I don't even know why he doesn't really. Apart from he just wants to observe it from without. And then Milsa wants to have a baby, which, you can't do once you get injected. But I feel like you could almost make a cool book or movie or short series about just that principle alone. Like, immortality has been discovered, but it has all these side effects. And how do people cope? How do people cope with that? And like, what's the family life and daily life, and what are the politics around all that? Like, that'd be really neat to like zoom in and dive into all that about the world. But that's not what this show is interested in.
No.
So, 1 year later, the Klaxosaurs make their appearance onto the world stage.
Godzilla.
2037. Klax attack. The noisy reptiles. They're attracted to the magma mines. And presumably, before this energy was discovered by Ape, they were hanging out below the Earth's surface and just enjoying it. It's revealed later that their civilization is quite old. So
I am biting my fist so hard right now, but I'm not going to tell you why.
So when they show up, they cause mass destruction. Cue the Persona 3 music. They cause mass destruction and are only stopped by nukes, right? And of course, at this point, what's his face? Franxx is like smitten with the Klaxosaurs. So very unsurprising that this kind of, he would fall in love with the subject of his future experiments, aesthete that he is. And we have some scenes of him neglecting his fiance, and then she dies.
Oh, before we get to that, don't forget, he goes and finds the Klaxosaur corpse in Alaska that's been dragged up. And Doc, what does he find out that's in the corpse?
Well, he says, I discovered that the XX chromosomes from female humans were in the Klaxosaurs. I didn't know exactly what this meant, but I knew it would be trouble. I had a bad feeling about it, he says. Now, I took great issue with this line, and perhaps I'm not being 100% fair, and perhaps the operative word, the word you need to be looking at in this line is human. There are human chromosomes in Klaxosaurs. Klaxosaurs share DNA-wise something with people. Mm-hmm. And that's troubling to him. But the way it's written, and this could be a translation thing, but I'm going to trust to the accuracy of the Crunchyroll script. It goes out as it says, it had chromosomes of female humans. And that was bad. That was trouble. It just, in most other shows, divorced from the context of Franxx and all the, gender politics and sexist stuff that's been in here, it would be, more forgivable. But, man, just attached to all the baggage, it's a really bad look. It's a really, really bad look.
I have nothing to add. Right, okay, actually I do have something to add. So, this line functionally exists to explain later, when the actual Franxx robots are developed, why they need a male and female pairing. And I'm going to actually quote from a video I watched by Dan Olsen, who does a number of wonderful YouTube videos and series on various radio techniques. I learned about the Kuleshov effect from him. He's a sound guy, so do check him out if you get a chance.
Folding ideas,
yeah. And he discussed the idea of what's called the Fermion argument, or the idea of diegetics. Now, I've actually used diegetics as a defense before, but after watching his video on this, it doesn't fly anymore, because at the end of the day, something that in universe makes sense is still penned by a human hand. It doesn't need to be that way. Nothing needs to be the way it needs to be. You can make anything up you need to. So it's always, inevitably, regardless of, what sense it makes in universe, still a function of out-of-universe perspective. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing, right? Even though this line functionally exists to explain later why they need the male and female pairings in the Franxx, it's still the creation of someone out of universe. It's still been penned by someone. So it's still dumb. It's still stupid. I mean, it's stupid in universe. I don't care, how much sense it makes otherwise. But, as Doc has rightly said, it's not a good look for this show. I mean, this show's optics, generally speaking, are terrible. Absolutely appalling. I mean, I've railed about, the stuff in one of the previous episodes about Zero to, pontificating on the future being, a kids-only avenue. And, oh, fucking boy, do I have... No, I can't spell it. Shut me whole mouth.
How does this make this link clear between how discovering XX chromosomes in the corpse here of the Klaxosaur sort of justifies or explains the male-female pairing in the cockpits?
I might potentially be revealing details that are given away in episode 20 by accident here. Just take it from me,
consider me okay to be spoiled. Just say what you need to say.
I think that at some point in 20, it's explained that basically the soul of the female binds with the Klaxosaur because of the female chromosomes. That's why you can't have a bloke in the pistol section.
Wow, man, it really is in the lineage of Evangelion. I mean, that's just
there's
wow.
there's an Evangelion homage visually with what happens with the first Franxx prototype in this episode as it happens.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I mean, and this is a Trigger co-pro, and they are also descended from Gainax and everything, so to be expected. And Otsuko, like we were talking about, worked on it, and several people that have worked on the show worked on that in some capacity or were influenced by it. So
yeah,
I mean, whatever. It means so many. If we were going to penalize anime for being influenced by Evangelion, then you have to penalize a hell of a lot of anime. but man, that's an interesting plot detail. I'll have to ruminate on that because, like you said, that's certainly not in this episode.
No, but I do then have to ask the question, come to think of it, if that's the case, then how do you explain 9 Alpha? Or actually something about 02, which we'll get to soon enough. Although I have a feeling there's another explanation of this, but here's the thing about this exposition, folks, in case you've not gathered. There's a lot of stuff it does not explain that it really ought to. In fact, the 9s are not mentioned once in this entire dump. Where did the 9s come from? Because
am I right?
Yeah, because I have questions, right, about like the very existence of the 9s raises a ton of plot holes as a result of this, but we'll get to that soon. So anyway, back to whatever the fuck Franxx was talking about.
Cliff's Notes position. Am I right?
I know. Well, now we get to the Ava reference, actually, funnily enough. Now we do get to it. It's
true. With Milsa. Rip Milsa.
I have...
because she becomes a test subject. Franxx puts up a one hell of a fight.
He does.
No. Why do you want to do this? You're doing this. Great.
I have questions, by the way. I'm going to raise my hand here while I ask this. First off, okay, Franxx is, by all accounts, a geneticist. So, what fucking business does he have developing giant robots?
Well, he told that to Ape when they hired him, that this is beyond the field of my expertise. But to be fair, they actually didn't hire him to make robots. That was a change in his job duties even later. So,
but he doesn't know the first thing about it, though.
Fair fucking question. Yeah, well, developing some sort of weapon. You think like he would want to make some sort of chemical weapon, but he's building robots.
Yeah, or a virus or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Second question. The reason that Karina is serving as a test subject is because it turns out that the Franxx must be piloted by people who still possess their reproductive functions.
I mean, how they come to this, I have no fucking clue.
Nope, nor do I. Now, I had speculated in a previous stream of thought that the reason this was the case, because Nana said as much, is a body morphism kind of thing. The Franxx are all designed to look like women or have the female form, and ergo they must be possessed of a consciousness with a female body. That still doesn't account for 9 Iosa, but neither does what we hear here about, the whole females needing to whatever, you get my point. So, in other words, it's not a question of actually possessing, the shape, more as it is possessing, fertility. I have a question then. If that is the case, how can 02 pilot a Franxx? Because by her own admission, she is sterile.
Well, because my guess would be the fact that she is like the direct clone of the Queen trumps all other considerations.
This was the thing I was hinting at with the 9s actually, and that's why they circumvent the whole, female thing. Then I have another question in response to that, because the problem with plot holes is that sometimes when you close them up with an explanation, you create another. Why isn't every single kid bred to be a half human, half Klaxosaur hybrid?
They only had so much DNA. I don't know. That's a great question.
Because the thing is, right, the reason that 02 is as good a pilot as she is because she apparently is able to tap into greater amounts of magma energy to power Strelizia's weapons. That's why Strelizia is as OP as it is, because she functions as the conduit to allow that to happen. You couldn't put Ichigo in Strelizia's cockpit and have it work. So, by that measure of logic, therefore, if you want to make the best Franxx robots possible, you would want, all of the, pistols at the very least to be, hybrids, like she is. And certainly the 9s but have their own custom Franxxes that are better than the regular ones. We've seen that. So why isn't that the case with every kid? Fucks if I know. This is the thing, right? This is what you get when you don't fucking think about your world building, about the plot points you're frame, where you don't take a step back to say, right, let me have a proper think about what this... Alright, that doesn't make sense. I should probably rewrite this. This is bollocks. This is absolute bollocks. Like, at this point, I still don't know why 02 revealed, that she's sterile. Apart from, pontificating in a way that really pissed me off. But again, just...
Right.
But again, speaking outside of, the whole politics and, what you can read into it, from a purely logic standpoint, it just contradicts what we know. And, again, Franxx does not... Doc has said, yes, it turns out 02 is indeed a clone, or, a Solid Snake kind of, bastardization of the Klaxosaur princess of Sarah Kerrigan. So, okay, we get that. Do we learn anything about why he decided to do this, or where the 9s came from? No. We don't. Fucking my god.
Because they're gonna give it to us later in some tossed off line. Which, I mean, God, it may sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I'm complaining about a huge episode devoted to all this when you could have drips and drabs, and then I'm complaining about tossed off lines. It's because that they have devoted this whole episode to explaining everything that I feel like you can get all that stuff out of the way so that we can kind of see all the unfolding consequences without too many more looming questions, kind of nagging, dangling threads, plot holes to worry about. It's that they have picked their sort of poison. They have chosen the way that they're going to do it, and that's to, feed it to us whole hog in this episode, and then a couple of other places in the show they've devoted really big chunks of time to setting things up or explaining or expositing.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be so mad about them possibly, and this is all hypothetical anyway, revealing kind of quickly and in a sort of toss-off manner about the 9s. If they had chosen that as their delivery mechanism for exposition throughout the show, then it would feel more clean, cohesive, and all of that. Whereas it would just feel like, oh, this is something that we forgot to do. Or this is a very undercooked explanation. Yeah.
On top of that, I have no faith that we're going to get any of these questions answered by the show's end for two reasons. One, because we are very close to the end. And number two, the person who's giving us this exposition is one of the most informed characters in the entire show, if not the most, with the exception of possibly the 8 members and Sarah Kerrigan. So if it ain't coming from him, when he's devoting so much time to explain it from beginning to end, we're not going to fucking hear it, period.
I wouldn't be surprised if we got an episode from the point of view of Alpha 9.
Not in this late hour. It's too late for that.
Don't put it past the show, man. I'm telling you.
Oh god, that would be so weird. Then again, I will allow that because I've just remembered that in Ancient Magus Bride, they did devote a very late episode to Cartophilius' backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And he fulfills broadly the same, I say very, very broadly here, the same kind of function. So it could happen, but here's the problem. In Ancient Magus' Bride, that was handled really well. And this is Darling in the Franxx, the show that would tie its own shoelaces together if given the opportunity.
I'm just going to assume faulty execution going forward from everything in this show.
Indeed. But yes, Karina dies in a homage to, Ray's Ava smashing its head against the wall.
Yes. And Franxx, the show's about 2 seconds of, reactionary grief, and then that's kind of it.
Yeah, he gives her a very plain grave in the middle of absolutely nowhere, which is just hilarious. Like, does he actually put the grave, say, in the plantation or somewhere he can, visit it? No, he just drops it in the desert somewhere. Great! What a wonderful fiancé!
She was born in 19... She has, surely, family or something.
Oh, this is the thing about the timeline. Like, oh, man, the timeline. So yes, so because of course the adults are all sterile, this is where Franxx gets the idea of cloning, breeding, test tube babying kids to serve as the pilots, because you can then have them be disposable soldiers who can pilot. Questions. 1. They don't necessarily have to be children. I've said this before, and now that we've got it out in the open, I'm going to ask again: why can't they be adults? Because adults, generally speaking, are more resistant to injury than kids. They're also generally smarter and better educated.
Maybe that's it. Maybe they want to keep them obedient. And perhaps children are just more inclined to be obedient.
Well, I suppose that's true.
They don't say that?
I suppose it's also true, that they're easier to restrain if they get out of line, perhaps. But the honest reason that I feel it's this case is because, again, we want to, have the target audience be able to identify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Particularly, people who want to self-insert in Hero's shoes because he's that fucking, holy and sacrosanct dickhead. So, okay, there's that. Next thing I want to ask. In Rearing the Kids, Franxx describes how the idea of Misselheim is formed for each plantation as a quarantine zone to keep them there. And he says the kids' emotions were left untouched because they were necessary.
Yeah, he's like, they need emotions, and these antiquated environments are good for fostering them.
Yes.
That's why they made the academy or whatever it is.
Yes. Except, there's a big exception here, because, again, this just makes you think that Frank...
hugely glaring.
Yeah. There's a bit of a problem with this, because... correct me if I'm wrong here, would-be listeners at home or wherever you may be, and if I am wrong on this, I'm more than happy to be corrected, because it will solve a wonderful contradiction here that Franxx come up with. But Squad 13 were set out aside so they did not have their emotions tampered with.
So I thought,
Yeah, and the rest of the squads...
I guess you could retcon explain it and be like, well, no, like, they... Well, you know what, as I'm saying this out loud... I mean, all the kids have to have reproductive functionality, or they couldn't pilot the robots.
Yeah.
So the only differentiator, the only variable that they're testing is the emotions. I mean, what else are they? How else are they an experimental group?
The fact that they had different Franxx robots, but then again, why did they have those in the first place?
Doesn't. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So, honestly, with everything that Franxx is talking about here, you can just ignore it. He contradicts previously established plot points. Or he doesn't tell you anything of value, or, as you've rightly pointed out, takes time to, try and relate events that make him seem human, when in reality we should have no sympathy for him whatsoever. So, if I wanted to say something, I'd say, this episode is a waste of time. It doesn't tell us anything, and what it does tell us contradicts what we've already established. So what the fuck is the point?
Well, no, you know what? Before we talk about more inconsistency, let's get another unexplained thing out of the way.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, you do. When Franxx is speaking about, having successful test subjects in the Franxx, a boy and a girl, he mentions injecting them with yellow blood cells.
Mm-hmm.
And then doesn't explain what those things are.
Yeah.
In the first place.
I have questions about this as well. Okay, how was Karina able to activate the Franxx in the first place without yellow blood cells? Because she wouldn't have had them prior to that.
Yeah, well, he says that the yellow blood cells were the thing that reduced the stress. So it wouldn't necessarily be, I don't think, at least going from the text itself, something necessary for activation, but for survival once activated.
Okay. Second question.
So what the fuck are the yellow blood cells?
Second question. Why are they injecting them?
Are they just Klaxosaur cells?
I don't know. But second question, why are they injecting them? Because I thought the kids made them on their own as part of like some sort of genetic modification. I mean, the kids aren't injected with yellow blood cells otherwise that I know of. Then again, they did have some previous... Fuck it, who cares? Let's not think about the yellow blood cell shit because it just...
I mean, they just don't explain what they are. I'd just like to know what they are, is all. They seem to be quite key.
Yeah, the only reason that they exist I can think of is because they are used as an explanation for Hero's techno-cancer and, you know, his inability as a pilot. They're midi-chlorians, like I said. But
and Mitsuru had a deficiency or something.
How did he get a deficiency, by the way? But whatever. I mean, these kids... This is a thing, like, when you're cloning soldiers, you can get rid of genetic deficiencies that would stop... Fuck it. No, shut up. Every little thing just falls apart right here. My God.
Boy, oh boy.
Anyway,
we have our second switch.
Oh,
here.
this scene, man.
This one's pretty baffling to me. In universe, considering what we know about the production in our world, it makes sense. You can come up with a credible theory to explain how this goes, but it's to do with Zorome. And in this scene, he suddenly remembers his filial piety, his devotion to Papa.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, everyone else is getting mad. The fact that Kokoro and Mitsuru have had their memories stolen. And Zorome kind of looking down, looking around, shuffling a little bit. It's like, well, I'm sure Papa has his reasons. What?
Yeah.
I mean, some 11th hour, like, return to previous... It makes sense with early show Zorome, but, like, the previous episodes, we have seen...
When he was eating.
Yeah, like, it sort of, like, you know, fuck Papa, like, we'll make our own food, you know, to survive, when he's, you know, rallying Futoshi. And then he got behind the wedding just as much as anyone else, even though he knew it was forbidden.
Yeah, he actually...
Papa.
Wasn't he the one who actually got clocked in the head by one of the guards' rifles when he protested? When they invaded? He was, wasn't he?
I can't remember.
He was. I'm fairly confident it was him who got knocked out. Because he actually said, hey, don't you do that. So, okay, as Doc has brightly pointed out, this scene technically works just fine. Because Zorome, like the storyboarding, Zorome is not looking at anyone when he's saying this. He's looking down at the ground. And his voice actor, credits to them, is, you know, murmuring under his breath. It's natural behaviour for someone who's not entirely convinced of what they're saying, but he's throwing them out there because they don't want to feel like they're, you know, going against a grain of sorts. And again, as Doc has rightly asserted, this is entirely in character with early show Zorome. Now, I wouldn't be adverse to, you know, characters changing as they go along, but bear in mind we had both the wedding in which he protested, you know, the guards invading, or... Sorry, tongue-tied here. Or, you know, the whole him saying, sod praying to Papa, I made my own food. So, as we've speculated, like, you know, with this show's production, this to me just feels like, again, that they're not even considering the, you know, the context of previous episodes. In a vacuum, This is perfectly fine. It works well. They've obviously put some thought into it, but they've completely forgotten about his previous, you know, changes of heart. So
yeah, I thought he was, like, evolving as a character. I mean, I'm not opposed to people behaving inconsistently either. I don't want you guys to think, well, characters have to behave in this logical fashion once they proceed down a path that is their trajectory. They're not allowed any hesitation. No. But there just was no kind of evidence or behavior or anything between his kind of going against Papa and now, where suddenly he seems to think that the fact that Papa has a reason for this craziness is good enough. Mm-hmm. And it just was not executed in a way that I found believable. It truly did feel like that someone had just not taken his actions from the last few episodes into account.
No, exactly. I mean, if they had devoted some time to, like, maybe having him discuss, like, let me pitch this, just him, like, you know, discussing it with Miku in private, and him being conflicted about it, and then the
All
group...
private discussions in the show are forbidden.
I know,
Unless it's the main two.
I know. And, you know, like, that's where he feels like more aligned against Papa, but then it's the group thing in the open and he might be overheard, and that's when he falls back in step. That would be better. But no, we don't get that. It's just inconsistent character writing. Congratulations.
Congratulations. And then we go back to Franxx. And at this point, you know, after his lady has died and Ape has largely taken over, and he's kind of experimenting on Klaxosaurus. He says he's sort of given up on humanity and the future of humanity in favor of seeking a perfect life form. And there's some footage in this shot here after we switch back to the flashback, in which I thought to myself that, like, you know, one thing I think that this show is conveying pretty well that has some emotional punch is the fact that, you know, the children being used as fuel so that the, you know, previous generation, the immortals, can live sort of listless comfort out for the rest of their days is, I think, potent. That got some emotion out of me. That, you know, the older generation is just breeding these kids to throw out to the wolves, to use as coal as fuel, you know, to support their own pursuits of, you know, whatever, to support their security. And that just, you know, it seemed poignant. It seemed, dare I say, relevant. And you've mentioned this before. No,
I have. I'm going to keep my mouth shut for now, and I'm just going to say that I'm going to remember what you've said here. I'm saying nothing more. But trust me on this. Like, I am exercising an immense restraint not to say things I know ahead of time. Let's move on before I let anything slip.
Well, Franxx hears a rumor, conveniently enough.
A rumor, that, oh my god.
Yes, there's rumored that Ape know about this queen bee, quote unquote, of the Klaxosaurus, that there's a queen, and it turns out they know her exact location.
Yep.
Yeah. And so Franxx is part of a military delegation, I guess, to go search for her. And they, you know, go under the earth and see, like, oh, wow, this is an ancient civilization of Klaxosaurus. And his guard gets killed pretty quickly.
I have to say, like, you know, I don't know if this is intentional, but this must absolutely be a direct homage to Aliens, because they have the motion tracker and everything. But the funny thing is that when I thought of that reference, it made me think of another thing as well, which is a famous line from Aliens, which is, nuke them from orbit, it's the only way to be sure. Because here's my question. If they know where the Klaxosaur Queen is, the Sarah Kerrigan, I mean, it's the establishing shot is of the volcano. It's the same place. She's not moved between this point in the flashback and present day, when we had the other Robo Bishops go visit her previously. So my question is, why didn't they just simply nuke the volcano? Like, they have nukes. They established that earlier on. I'd be very surprised if they gave them up, you know, when they took out the plantations on. Like, that would seem a bit silly. So why not just nuke the volcano and bury her under several thousand tons of rock and kill her? You know where she is. For that matter, why not attack that place directly? If you could attack the Grand Crevasse in such numbers, what's stopping you from doing the same here? Like, are you telling me that, you know, they knew where she was all this time and didn't do anything like that? They didn't even attempt it?
Yes, that is what I'm telling you.
This is absolute horseshit.
Perhaps there are essential magma reserves that they will obliterate if they nuke that spot.
Maybe. But for that matter, I then have to ask, what on earth has the Klaxosaur princess been doing all this time? I mean, to give you guys some idea of the time frame on this, the establishing shot earlier is we actually see Nana and Hachi as children, you know, when they're the first generation of Franxx pilots. And then, of course, you can extrapolate how old our Squad 13 heroes are. So that's how long this has passed. It's been at least a decade and a half, if not more than that. And you're telling me she's just been down in that same volcano all this time and has done nothing. I mean, the attacks that she has sent, if she's controlling the Klaxosaurs, have been terrible. They've been absolute rubbish. I mean, the only reason that she hasn't won admittedly is because initially the Squad 13 kids were terrible as well. But come on, I'm going to send a single Cthulhu Klaxosaur. You've got hundreds, if not thousands of them. It's honestly, I'm absolutely stunned. She just didn't do anything. And, fuck, yeah.
Humanity is a belligerent and warlike species, unlike the Klaxosaurs.
Yes, which is entirely why they have, giant T-Rex robots that shoot lasers out of their mouth. Of course.
Yeah.
But yes, indeed, Franxx's team, some guards, some guys in hazmat suits, or whatever, they're all killed by Sarah Kerrigan herself.
Was it by herself? I wasn't.
Yeah, they were stabbed by. Some of them were stabbed by her, her spider, her wings or whatever you want to call them.
So she sort of emerges, kills those guys, and comes face to face with Verna, and he is smitten with her.
Of course, he is.
Entranced, he's found now the perfect life form that he's obsessed with. Again, a very rote trait of a bad scientist character. So, done nothing to enhance that type or make it interesting or put a spin at nope. So, yeah, he's just sort of drooling over her as she communicates messages into his brain, saying, come over here, extend your hand, and then she licks him, and I'm pretty sure, has an orgasm. Is elated and euphoric from the touch of her tongue upon his fingers.
She literally wanted to check if he tasted like chicken. And if you think I'm joking...
Yeah, you have the scent of my people on you, she says, and your sins are too great for me to just kill you. So I guess she was just going to kill him, in which case, why didn't she just do it? I don't know. Who can say?
Yeah,
anyway,
she bites off his arm.
Fate worse than death for you. You will live, and, I guess, I don't know, maybe touch is quite important for Klaxosaurs, and to live without one of your main methods of touch. Perhaps she considers that suffering. Maybe she wanted him. Who knows what she's thinking? I don't know.
She did him a favor because he actually said in an earlier line that if he could, he'd replace his entire body with a mechanical one.
That's true.
So what a punishment.
Rips his arm off with her teeth. And then he rides her out on the ground in painful euphoria.
Yeah, and he's leaking like a Capri Sun.
He really is. It's like MK2 levels of blood. He's just gushing a fountain, and lives by putting his hand over the wound.
In case you're wondering, folks, there is no explanation whatsoever for how Franxx survives this.
Yeah, unsure of how he made it out of there.
If he had just
blood loss.
Yeah, exactly. I would get maybe that there was a transport waiting for him, but he is he's lost his entire fucking arm here. He is leaking like the Titanic. So how he survives, don't know, not explained. Fuck this show. Let's move on.
Correct. So, and thus ends the big flashback, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We see that the kids want to talk to Papa and say, hey, give our friends their memories back. And they beseech the Robo-Bishops to do so. And the Robo-Bishops say, well, we can't do that. We didn't just take them, we deleted them. So they're gone. Tough luck. And Futoshi gets very upset by this. He is very angry and shouting at them. And Zorome, in a, parallel to 02, steps forward and asks Papa how many more Klaxosaurs he has to kill before he becomes an adult. Well, he asks for all of them, in the same way that 02 asks about killing Klaxosaurs to become human.
Mm-hmm.
And the Robo-Bishops remain silent. And Zorome, I guess they, it would have probably behooved them to just throw out a random number to keep him as their faithful disciple. But they just, I guess they're sort of feeling like overwhelmed by their own lie. They don't know what to say to this kid.
Well, they say that they'll do it after the next mission.
Well, no, so they say that about their freedom. But when Zorome's talking about being an adult, they just don't say anything. And he says, well, what are we living for then? Are we really just vessels like that you made to fight and die? And yet again, they remain silent. So, yep, that's in fact the case, kid. Mm-hmm. And then Hero takes over. He steps to the mic and says, "You're not our Papa anymore. After this mission, we want to go free." And they're like, cool, that's fine. Do what you got to do, like, here, and then we're good.
I have many things I need to say about this fucking conversation, because no one who speaks in this conversation, apart from the ape guys, I suppose, acts like they have a single brain cell. So, okay.
I don't fault Zorome.
No, Zorome is fine, although I think that he's been perhaps a bit too dense to, buy, like, come on, guys, like, this is beyond the point in which you should be leaving this anymore. Okay, couple of things. First off, Hero stepping up and say, like, we're not going to believe you anymore. Does he not remember how willing Ape are to use force to put them in line? They've done it with him when he was a kid, when he stole 02 away. They did it at the wedding. Him saying that out loud puts bullseyes on every single one of them. I don't disagree with his sentiment, but he really should have kept his bloody trap shut here. Now, I know ahead of time, by the way, why Ape is so lenient on them, but I'm not going to spoil that. But at this moment, this is a really stupid thing to do.
From his perspective, yeah.
It's really, really dumb. He should have kept his mouth shut. Second, this is the point in which he finally reveals to everyone that, oh yeah, you were raised by the 02's memories.
That's right.
Does anything happen as a result of this? No. Not a damn fucking thing. What even was the fucking point? No, I'm sorry. I'm really going off on it. What even was the fucking point of episode 13? What even was the point? We went through all that. That was one of the best episodes of the show. We got some genuine, interesting backstory here, and it doesn't mean shit. We finally get it revealed, and it doesn't matter. No one has anything to reflect on it. Not a damn thing. He just says it out loud like it's the most minor thing ever. And no one even reacts to it. There's not even a gasp from the other kids there going, wait, it happened to you too?
Yeah.
Are you fucking taking the piss here, Franks? And thirdly, Hero says, we want you to give the memories back. Hero, you've had your own memories erased. You know how to get them back. Indeed, it was almost hinted at earlier on, in which Ritoshi said, Mitsu and Kokoro should pilot together again. Because that's how you got your memories back with 02, through the mind meld. You know how this can be done.
You have to engage in autoerotic asphyxiation.
Believe me, the show's doing that to me. It's strangling the life out of me. So, fourthly, what kind of naivety do you have to run with to have gone through, all of the stuff you've been through, where the wedding was disrupted, where, they flat out wanted to kill you because you stole 02 and then wipe your own memories, and all the other horrible stuff that's happened. Now, people will make the apologetic argument that, they're indoctrinated, to serve Papa's will and all that. No, this is past that point. They're all unhappy about it. Zorome is the only one who offers any even hint of it, and even he is broken at this point. So, even if, Ape genuinely wouldn't, just flat out shoot them all dead there and then, because for them stepping out of line, like, you have to be incredibly dense and incredibly naive to believe that they would ever grant that request in the first place. I honestly feel like the moment those characters step through that door, like Hero in particular, always been a dense bastard, and at this point he's just got nothing but air and mothballs between his ears. Fucking really. So after all that, it doesn't accomplish shit. And one of the most potentially, dramatic reveals of the entire show, that could have meant so much, discussion for characters, what it means for 02, what it means for Hero. It's just a one-line reveal that means
I know.
fuck
I mean,
all.
Like, yeah. I mean, yes. Like, you could have, if the knowledge that the memories were taken from them by itself doesn't mean anything. Like, you could give them those pasts and not do that. You know what I mean? I agree with you. Like, it seems like a lot of wasted potential.
Wasted time, wasted potential, wasted everything. Anyway.
Yeah. And then the last thing of the episode is Franxx saying, revealing to us, the audience, that 02 is in fact a clone or some sort of direct descendant or flawed copy, or we don't have the details. I just will say clone as a matter of shorthand of the Queen. Mm-hmm. And we could, you can see her appearance and see that. And then episode end.
Yeah.
Franxx out.
Before I forget, to continue the trend of, going out with a whimper rather than a bang here, not delivering on previously established plot points, Hero confronts Dr. Franxx in the elevator about what happened. And,
oh, fuck, yes.
And my God, does he deliver it in such a, you took my lunch out of my fridge manner. It was honestly pathetic. I'll never forgive you.
What did you want him to do? To, like, slap him with a fencing glove or something?
I wanted him to get emotive. I wanted him to get angry.
I mean, If you experienced those memories, I mean, you'd feel like you would. That was terrible. Werner Franxx is a terrible person.
Yeah. On top of that, this again, I'm very sorry to say, is Hero's thing, not 02's. Because while he did have his memories erased, she was the one who was violated in such a way,
Mm-hmm,
when he was when he was blowing holes clean in her. Does 02 get in on any of this with Franxx, to say, fuck you piece of shit? No,
he gets to have the indignation on her behalf.
It's not about her.
God, you're so right. God, that's so fucking dumb.
Yeah. And as Doc has said, basically, Franxx got a hold somehow of a couple of strands of the princess's hair. How that happened and how she didn't notice this, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. How did she not notice?
It also, if 02 is indeed, a hybrid or a clone or whatever you want to call it of Sarah Kerrigan, why was she red? Why does she have two horns when the Klaxosaur princess only has one central horn? Why does she not have any of the tentacle-related stuff?
Well, he's right. I mean, clone is probably bad phrasing. Like, she's spliced together cells from the Queen and humans.
But how does she have two horns?
Perhaps
the one. What the fuck is going on?
I don't know. Who fucking knows? And maybe she's like the umpteenth attempt of many. I mean, who knows? Maybe she's the second attempt. She has the 02 bracelet on, and there's a prototype out there lurking around somewhere.
You mean a code 001?
Indeed.
Spoilers for episode 20, code 001 is the Klaxosaur princess. Not that, by the way, that does not mean... No, don't worry. It doesn't mean that Franxx created her or anything. That's just the code he says that she is. Doesn't mean anything.
So there was not a... Okay, well, so she's then the first attempt. 02 is... Okay.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. All right, well, how do you rate this episode?
It may surprise you to know, but I actually did not hate this episode more than I hated 17. The one I really threw the rattle out of the pram on. Because the thing is,
Right.
the vast majority of this episode is not actually preaching a mess. Well, there is the atheist stuff, which you pointed out, which I didn't even think of, but you are entirely correct. That is stupid, and I hate it. But for me, the vast majority of this episode was just failures, technically speaking, as far as the narrative goes, like plot holes, inconsistencies, wasting my time. A lot of it wasn't actively offensive to me. But that being said, it is such a catastrophic failure at what it attempts to do or what it wants to do that it's still easily one of the worst episodes of the show. And for that, in the end, my God, I will give it 1.5 Australian nukings out of 5.
Okay. Yeah, I thought this episode was a pretty dismal failure on everything it tried to do. As you say, it set the degree of difficulty for itself quite high, being an exposition-laden episode. Any show would struggle to pull that off and be remotely sort of, entertaining to an average degree. This, failed that bar. It failed in that, it tries to humanize this character who we've seen is remorseless and terrible, and sets him up like it goes about humanizing him by making him a cookie cutter mad scientist. So that doesn't really help. It does not answer a lot of the burning questions. It raises questions. Man, I think I have seen from my response to this episode that I actually don't like I thought the world building initially when I was viewing episode 1, of course, and early episodes, I thought the world building would be a strength of the show, but I've come to just not care about it really too much at all. I mean, there are points that will be interesting in their own stories, if expanded upon, but as part of this story, I don't really care. The high school drama stuff is the stuff I actually find the most engaging, even more than the robot fights, which for me have been pretty lackluster in this show.
By the way, since episode 16, we've not had a single actual robot fight or anything.
Okay, so blah. God, right. So not a lot of positive things I can say about this episode. Some of the moments with Zorme were nice. That depiction of cruelty to a younger generation by the older ones, I thought, that had some poignance. We'll see how they spoil that.
Oh, I already know how they do.
You do?
I do, but I'm keeping my mouth shut. I want you to experience it raw when you get to 20, because by God, folks, just to get it out of the way ahead of time, we are actually going to do, I know we're catching up here, but because we're cool like that, we're actually going to do episode 20 tomorrow. At the time of recording, we're going to come back tomorrow and record episode 20. We're going to give you a double whammy. And Doc has not yet seen episode 20. I have. And Doc, it gets worse.
Great. I don't know if it can get much worse than...
You're not ready.
Than 1 detached arm out of 5.
Damn. So that's the worst episode of the show for you thus far, then?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Unequivocally for me.
We're going to buckle up because like I say, I've seen episode 20, and well, let's put it this way, right, Doc? You and I both watched Cardo, The Wrong Answer. And
we did.
You recall how that spiraled out of control towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's on par, if not worse, with that kind of, tailing off into the distance, of going completely off the rails.
Oh, boy.
I was not ready for it. And
damn.
It's... let's just put it this way, folks. We'll be back these episodes will be out very shortly after each other, because Doc is very kindly editing 20 while I'm doing 19, so we can get them both out in time, and therefore we can catch up and give you the full undiluted Stream of Force experience. So I am looking forward, quote unquote, to recording episode 20, because it's such a trip. It's, at this point, it's like being strapped into, a straitjacket and just laughing as you're trolleyed through the asylum, because it just literally drove me nuts in a cackling kind of way.
hopefully I'll be more on my pod game tomorrow. I felt, after not doing this for, I think, 3 weeks, I've definitely felt rusty today.
You're
Like,
fine.
I was not at my best.
You were fine.
But we'll spring back into action, as you say, recording tomorrow. And you've got me excited about episode 20. Yay! But in the meantime, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Shaden1010 on Twitter, folks. Feel free to, hit me up for anything.
Yeah, you can find me at The Subtle Doctor on Twitter. Please reach out. Let's talk Franxx or other better anime.
Let's talk about Megalobox.
Let's talk about how I need to watch more Megalobox. I'm very behind on Megalobox for some reason. I'm caught up with this goddamn piece of garbage.
I said it before on Twitter and I'll say it again. I am so sour on the fact that I'm in the timeline where I'm doing Franxx and not Megalobox as a stream of thought. Because
I know.
Because thing is, right, in this episode I've said at length about many technical things that are fucked up, like, the script not making sense or the direction being off. Everywhere that this show zigs, Megalobox zags. It's on point. There's so much great visual artistry in it, like deliberate framing, and the script is tight. So, man, what could have been?
That if you haven't. But yeah, for Shadan and myself, the Subtle Doctor, thanks for tuning into Warui Deshou.
Indeed.
Stream of Thought, Darling in the Franxx, episode 19, Inhumanity. We will be back very soon, but until then, embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe.